Welcome back, everyone. Last week was the deadline for UK companies to hand in their statistics for the gender pay gap to show how much they were paying men compared to women on average in their company, and the breakdown of their jobs and various details like that, which means that the news has been full of articles about the pay gap again. You may remember my video this time last year on the same topic. It was the same thing last year as well. It's a yearly thing. I thought this was a good opportunity not to talk about the pay gap again or to talk about feminism, but to talk about economics, which is a subject you may know I have been pretty interested in, although I've never studied it in any official capacity. So I think it's a very interesting topic to talk about. And I'm going to the very basics today. What is an economic decision? What is a rational economic decision? The conversations that we have around the gender pay gap usually assume that to earn more money is better, which is it's a pretty common assumption, right? When you see a group of people who are on average earning less money than another group, a lot of people will say, well, that the group that's earning less is doing worse, or they're being oppressed, or they're somehow in some other way that they have a lower position than the other group who is earning more. But I don't think that's true at all. Of course, earning very little money to the point where you can't pay your bills, you can't feed yourself, and your life is a constant struggle to just get by will make you incredibly miserable, and the group of people who live below that poverty line are definitely in trouble, and that's not the group of people I'm talking about. I'm not talking about any particular wage or living standard. I'm talking about relative differences, or rather the individual decisions that people make to either earn more money or less money. Money doesn't make people happy, and what's funny is that everybody knows that, above the sort of poverty level I was discussing before, the amount of money that you have coming in, there's a very quick plateau in the amount of happiness that it will bring you, the amount of life satisfaction you'll get from that money. There's only so much extra life satisfaction you can get out of a salary increase. And yet we keep looking at income and comparing it between people to measure some kind of life satisfaction or some kind of, how well off someone is. To say someone is well off is a euphemism for saying they're rich, but I mean literally how good their life is. We look at these, we look at income inequality, and we look at these differences in groups, and we say, okay, well, men are doing better than women because they're on average earning 30% more. But the women who are earning less, there's a lot of reasons why they are earning less. Some of it may be due to discrimination, but I think a lot of it is just choices, and it's been said so many times, but I really think it's worth looking at this from an economic standpoint. When you make a choice to work fewer hours because there is something in your life you would rather be doing, that is an economic decision. You haven't made a stupid decision to work fewer hours because maybe you're just a chilled out person, you don't want to work that much. You'd rather have spare time to water the flowers in the garden or play video games or whatever. That's not necessarily a bad decision. And I'd argue that if you make a decision like that with no pressure to do so, if nobody's making you do that, or it's pretty much always a good decision, because you're making the choice that makes the most sense to you. You're prioritizing your spare time over your salary, and if that is what you think will bring you more life satisfaction, then it probably will. I mean, not necessarily. I mean, people do make bad choices sometimes, they make mistakes, but I think it's pretty safe to say that people who want to work fewer hours and can afford to do so have made a pretty good decision. If we look at someone who retires at the age of 50 because they were able to earn a lot of money in their middle age and in their youth, that's not someone who's an idiot. That's someone who's done very well and now wants to enjoy the money they've earned. It seems like a very good idea, actually, if you can do that. If you'd asked me about 5 years ago, before I was interested in economics, if you'd asked me what I thought economics was, I would have said it was the study of money and purchasing. Perhaps I would have gone that far, but mostly I would have defined it as something to do with money. But actually, the more I learn about economics, the more I think it's more like the study of scarce resources, which is a definition I've heard, I can't remember from where. But money is one thing that people will try to optimize for in their life, but time is actually a much more scarce resource. We only have a certain amount of time in our life to live. That is the only resource we can never get back. You can never get time that you've spent back. And I think the way people spend their time, as well as how they spend and earn their money, that's equally part of economics. Adam Smith, who many say is the founder of economics, he actually studied moral psychology I think that was what it was called. Moral philosophy, actually. He studied moral philosophy, which is that was how he got started thinking about economics, was thinking about moral philosophy. He was interested in what made people make their moral decisions. There's a quote that I hear on this podcast I listen to called Econ Talk. The host says it all the time. It's become a bit of a running joke, but I've said it on this channel before as well. Adam Smith, I can't remember which book it was in now, but he wrote that man desires not only to be loved, but to be lovely. He didn't write that man desires to earn a lot of money. That his understanding of what motivates people was based on people's desire to be admired by other people and to be worthy of that admiration. And although I think that may be a little bit simplistic, I think it does go to show that even from the very beginning, economics was not just about money. It was about how people spend their time and other scarce resources, how they organize their resources to optimize their life, just to gain the admiration of their peers, to get status, to get comfort. Maybe you know of the Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It's a hierarchy that's people use for all sorts of different things. It's basically a kind of pyramid with things that people try to acquire going up it. So at the bottom are the things that people, when you give someone who has absolutely nothing, if you give them their first £10 note, what are they going to spend it on? Well, they're probably going to spend it on food, shelter, physical needs that will keep them alive, sustenance, the things that will stop them from dying immediately. But if they start earning a little bit more than that, what do they spend it on next? After their basic needs are met? Well, maybe they'll spend it on a little bit of entertainment. Maybe they'll try and get a girlfriend or something, and then you get higher and higher up, and people will, and once they have these needs met, they ascend to the next step, and they get these sort of philosophical, these much more philosophical requirements. They will satiate those, and probably there aren't very many people who get all the way to the top, but I think it's very simplistic, but I think it does roughly translate to how people do spend their money and how they spend their time. Most of us are lucky enough to live in a world where we do not have to spend all of the money that comes in on just staying alive and just staying moderately comfortable. If you're watching this video, then you've probably got access to just a little bit more money than that, at least. And I think at that point is when people start to make these trade-offs between work life and home life, and just that expression work-life balance, it starts coming into play, where people will refuse a certain amount of extra salary in order to enjoy the salary they've already earned, enjoy their life a little bit more. My favourite example of this is my own father, who will probably watch this video and be really embarrassed, but I think he's the absolute epitome of a person who has optimized their life for their own satisfaction. That doesn't mean that he's selfish. It's kind of the opposite. He's a very smart man, and he has a PhD, and he chose to go into education. He's a teacher, and he's always been a teacher ever since he's graduated, as far as I know, for my whole life. He until very recently, he worked in the government school business, meaning that he wasn't earning that much. I mean, it was enough to raise all of us, and we had a very comfortable childhood. I'm not complaining about that, but he definitely could have been earning more. I really don't doubt that. He probably could have gone into finance, or he's very clever. He could have gone into anything, I think. And yet he wanted to work in education. I don't know why exactly. I never really talked to him about it specifically, but there's a reason, right? There must be something that he's getting out of it. Maybe he likes helping students, or maybe that's just something he finds fun. But right from the beginning, he wasn't optimizing his life for his salary, and I think he made the right choice there. On top of that, he does a lot of volunteer work, and he would never call it that, but that is what it is. He does a lot of labour for his local church, and for just people he knows, that is not paid for, and is probably never paid back in any material way at all. If we look at Adam Smith's definition of what a person desires, then I think my dad is doing great. He is greatly admired by the community that he's very active in, and by his family and friends, and people who have met him who don't even know him that well will just say really nice things about him completely unprompted. He's just that kind of person. He's extremely reliable and just admired. I think it's a good word for it, and he is completely deserving of all of that admiration. So I think he's doing great. But if you reduce his life down to his lifetime salary and his wealth now, then he probably doesn't appear very high up in the rankings of, the income distribution of Britain. But I think he's done absolutely excellently with his life so far. So why is there this obsession with income distribution? I really have stopped understanding it in any way except for jealousy, I think. When you look at the people who were earning, 100 times what my dad has earned in his entire life, I don't understand why that is interesting information at all. I think the only thing we should be interested in is how many people are living below that quality, below that income where a good quality of life is possible. I think the absolute number of poor people is what we should be focusing on, and I don't really understand why anybody is obsessed with this income distribution stuff and income inequality when it's not significant of anything. I'm really not interested in the people who are earning £100,000 a month. I'm sure I'm absolutely certain they're not as happy as my dad, and they're not as liked as my dad. If someone is doing a job where they can earn that much, as long as they're doing it through ethical means, as long as they're doing it through ethical means, I really don't care at all. And that's not me saying that it should be legal or whatever. I'm saying it doesn't actually bother me. Anyway, I think I've gone on long enough about that one very simple point that everybody probably knew already, but I feel like it's worth making because it's one of those things that seems really obvious after you know it, and probably a lot of people watching this think it's really obvious, but it seems like it's not something I always knew. It's something I only learned recently through studying economics and through studying sort of psychology a little bit and that sort of thing. It's not something that was... It's obvious but not apparent, if that makes sense. Is that an important distinction? You might remember that last year I did a fundraising live stream for testicular cancer. By the way, you should all be checking your testicles, as we learned last year. But this year I want to raise money for perhaps another charity. So if you are interested in watching a live stream and donating to a charity, or if you just want to suggest a charity, then please leave a comment detailing your interest in that. I think I might just do a straightforward stream where I look at some articles that I've picked up beforehand and maybe do some drawings because I just like drawing. So if you have any other suggestions apart from that, then please let me know. And if you have any preferred charities that you think do really good work, even if they're just local to you, that would be good to hear as well. I'm always a little bit skeptical of charities because I don't know exactly how well they're doing with the money that I give them. So I'd love to hear if you have any personal experience with a charity that you know does good work. So please let me know about that, or just look out for it. It'll probably come up sometime in April, maybe in May if I don't get around to it. But until next time, thank you for watching, and I'll see you again soon.
Good idea, Ernie. A toast to my big brother George, the richest man in town.